Keep my remarks short. I do want to tell you a little bit. You heard my resume, but I grew up. I want to tell you a little bit about my background because those values carry me through today. I grew up in upstate New York in a town that has gone through many of the changes that we're seeing across much of America. It was a place that had Bausch and Lomb, Kodak, Xerox, a small city that had major corporations that are now gone. Kodak in the last 5 years has cut 40,000 jobs. I go back and see a town that I don't recognize anymore. And we're experiencing that here in Georgia. And we'll get into why I'm running and some of the things I'm going to do to change that. But it affects me. Going and growing up in a family with a father who was a teacher who taught for 30 plus years, a mother who was a nurse who ultimately ran a free health clinic in rural Virginia to provide for people who the system had left behind. Those stay with me. My grandfather, who we all have a member of the greatest generation that we can call upon, whether they're with us. Unfortunately, those ranks are dwindling. But we know what that means. When I say greatest generation, you think of honor, integrity, support for community, engagement, sacrifice, giving of themselves for the betterment of all of us. My grandfather, George, was one of those people. And he didn't talk about his experience. He wouldn't tell you that he got a Bronze Star. He wouldn't tell you why. One day he offhandedly said he was volunteered for service. And months later, after he passed away, I was watching a video of World War II, and it was the Battle of Tarawa Island. And something jarred in me, and I went back and looked at his letter that went with the Bronze Star, and he was one of the first people on the island in Tarawa Island, which was the bloodiest battle for the United States Marine Corps in the Pacific. He didn't talk about it. Now, my brother will tell you that there was a race among the cousins to see who had the short straw to not sit next to Grandpa at dinner, because he would talk your ear off, and those of you who know me well know where I got it from, so you can blame my grandfather. But you can also blame my grandfather for being committed to serve, and that's why I'm running. I look at a state that has been the top 10 in job creation for decades, that has been the top 10 in housing starts, in quality of life, and on and on and on. It's the engine of the New South. We've heard that for a long time. Unfortunately, the bills of that success are now coming due, and I believe we do not have the leadership in place to solve those problems.
Hear, hear.
And so that's why I'm running to tackle them. Our current Secretary of State's office has made elections a partisan football. It is about one party gaining control of the legislature through the voting process. That issue is not about partisanship and rhetoric. It's about an individual right to vote that too many people have fought a generation upon generation to preserve. And we will not let that continue. When I am your Secretary of State, we will make sure that, one, we protect the right to vote, that every vote will count. It will count once. We'll make sure it only counts once. But that we will prevent unnecessary barriers from participation. Because one of the things I've learned, whether it was Vote for America or my thesis on grad school or in grad school on improving voter participation, people do not participate because government doesn't have a connection to their lives. They know government when they have to pay a tax bill, or when something doesn't work, or right now when we're facing trillion-dollar deficits and services are being cut. So that's why the second thing we will do as Secretary of State is focus on creating jobs through the corporations division. You will hear some of my opponents, which, by the way, I will tell you, I have learned very quickly. People will cast comments about their opposition or get into mudslinging. We will absolutely not do that. These are people who are committing themselves to service. They're sacrificing time with family. They're sacrificing opportunities with their jobs, and so I respect all of my opponents. But they have it flat wrong. They see this office as about administering process. One of the opponents actually says, I have gone to work in a county government so I can know the nuts and bolts of government. You need someone as Secretary of State who has a vision and will fight for the rights of individuals, not just administer process. And so the second piece of our campaign platform is to take the corporations division, which right now is a place you have to file. If you're a nonprofit, a small business, a Walmart, and you do business in the state you incorporate, you file paperwork, but there are no resources to ensure you succeed. 60+% of the jobs in this state come from small businesses. We say you have to file your paperwork and then you're on your own. We're going to look at creating a a small business administration-like entity within that office that not only makes sure you're signed up to do business here, but empowers you to succeed, empowers you to create jobs. The Labor Department is focused on the individual. The Georgia Department of Economic Development is focused on those big companies. We're focused on you. And I know there are many small business owners in this room. That's who we're going to support. The third thing we're going to do, by the way, I need to stop for a second, and I promise we're getting near the end here. But I need to stop. How many people can tell me the 5 divisions, Andy, you can't raise your hand, the 5 divisions that the Secretary of State's office is responsible for? You can't. It's responsible for elections, it's responsible for incorporations through the Corporations Division, securities, the state's archives, and licensing. It actually oversees licensing boards that cover everything from people who take care of your hair to accountants and others. They make sure that procedure are followed so you don't get ripped off, so you get what you paid for and your rights are protected. So the third piece, we're going to look at the securities division and the licensing division to make sure that people are doing what they say when they come out to put air conditioning units in your house. That we don't have Bernie Madoffs in Georgia walking off with your money when they start a hedge fund. The next piece that we're going to focus on is making sure that this state is a place we're proud to call home. I have a vision for this state, hopefully that comes clear, and I have the action and the belief in making this possible. And I also want to take a second and recognize Andy Freeman, who's our campaign manager, came on board this week. He's been fantastic already. He's been in Georgia politics more than 20 years. He knows everyone. Literally, I told him we were going to Athens on next Tuesday. We literally talked about this yesterday. I said, we're going to Athens on Tuesday to meet with the Small Business Development Council of Georgia to talk about how we create jobs. And he had 5 other meetings for us that day. Literally not 5, but close. So he's been fantastic already, and we're going to rely on him. I want to leave you with a story. It highlights why this office means so much to me, and hopefully why it means something to you. This is September, and it's hard to believe that at the start of this month, we stopped to commemorate 9/11, 8 years ago. Now, some of us in this room will be glad that the 8 years are over because a previous administration was involved in running the country, and some of us are happy that that's not where we are today. But we stopped to remember the heroes and those who were lost on that day. 9/11, I was running Vote for America, and we were out trying to engage people in the process. And I had the good fortune, the honor really, of in that process talking to a woman who had spent time with survivors, spent time with the families of those who had been lost in 9/11, and she relayed a story to me which has stuck with me. On that day, we all know a number of planes left various airports, and they were headed across the country. They were hijacked. Several of them were driven into buildings, and that's what we remember. She reminded me that there was a plane that crashed in Pennsylvania. She didn't have to remind me, but she related that some of the people that she had talked to had said family members were frantically calling on their cell phone saying, we've been hijacked, call for help. We've been hijacked, I don't know that I'm coming home. We've been hijacked, what do we do? And they begin to find out that other planes were hijacked, that there was a plot afoot, and that deadly schemes had been implemented. And as they were pushed to the back of the plane violently, huddled, calling people, worrying about their lives, worrying about the future of their families that they would never see again, they did a simple thing that we take for granted. At that moment where they were realizing their mortality was imminent, they voted. They voted to take action to storm a cockpit. They voted to make a stand. Folks, voting is so innate to who we are that the moments of peril, the moments of joy, we reflect, whether it's a plane or playing a football game as a kid, you vote. I will protect your right to vote as Secretary of State. I will get up every day to make sure that you get the government you deserve. That's why I'm running. I appreciate your vote. I appreciate you being here. And I look forward to an exciting year ahead. And we will win with your support. Thank you very much.